OTC Decoded. What's the most interesting or unusual project you've ever worked on, and why did it stand out?
I think it's a bit of interesting and unusual. Going back to my previous life in FFS Refiners, we were industrial heating fuel producers and suppliers to the industry. And one of the raw materials was used lubricating oil. And we always tried to add value to the used lubricating oil. So we had a cracking distillation unit, which produced a distillate fuel from that, but it was very olefinic and very easily polymerized. So we tried to improve the quality of this material. In my life with Natref, I was a process engineer on the hydrotreating units, and hydrotreating was my baby. So we decided to look at the hydrotreating of this material to saturate the olefins. But of course, hydrotreating seems to be the specialized job for the UOPs, the Kellogg's, the Foster Wheelers, those type of people. So for a small company like FFS to build it or to contract these people to do that was just not feasible. So we decided we're going to build it ourselves, and we were the laughingstock of the industry at the time. So we built a small little pilot plant, and Pierre Rousseau, one of my colleagues at the time, he was running this pilot plant, and we had very interesting results from that. So we started to expect a bigger one, and this one we built in with low pressure, high pressure separators as well. And we, contrary to what the normal R&Ds will do, just having a thimble of catalyst, we decided to do a little mini plant and have it in a continuous throughput. So that gave us a lot of information around the space velocities, the types of catalysts we could use, the pressures, and what we got from all of those. So we did a lot of research around that. And at the end of the day, it was feasible to us to go this route. It looked like we going to get a good product. And we started designing it ourselves. So Pierre, myself, and Don Hunter were the design team. We got two retired process controllers from Natref at the time, and we got them in for the practical experience. And we designed this plant and we built it. And eventually we ran it, and it was producing the product we wanted to get. Unfortunately, at the time, there was a lot of pressure on heating fuels around the country, and a lot of people got involved in the used lubricating oil recovery and selling it just as a folded material into the industry for mostly the asphalt plants. And product of feedstock availability became a major problem. So at the end of the day, we just couldn't get enough feedstock together to make this plant worth its while. So we shut it down at that point in time and mothballed it. But then with the results we had there, we became known a little bit in the industry, at quite a few industrial conferences, which we did papers on. And we created some interest in the rest of the world. So we got interest from Australia, a company called Trans-Pacific Refiners. And we purchased this 50% shareholding in Trans-Pacific by giving them a hydrogenation plant for their products. That plant is still running today, and for a long time it was the only producer of base oil in Australia. There's another plant at the moment, as far as I know, that's now also running on used lubricating oil, but Trans-Pacific is still running their plant. So that was a very good success story. As time went on then, the market opened up again, and we were looking at maybe doing a base oil on this plant, restarting it. Base oil obviously has got a lot higher value, and even at a lower throughput, we thought we could make it work. But there was a few issues around the base oil. You needed high viscosity, so we couldn't use the cracking distillation feedstock. We had to use the used lubricating oil as is. That required a massive cleaning operation up front. It's got to be super clean to go through the catalyst, not blocking it and not causing channeling and all of that. So we started with a process which we call the DMAS, demetallization, ashing, and sedimentation process, or the sedimentation soot recovery process. There's a lot of soot in your used lubricating oil, and that also blocks your catalyst. So we had to take that out. This process was quite unique. There's a lot of various cleanup processes in the world, but none of them that really runs it to the level we want to get it to. And the big problem we've got with used lubricating oils, if you start to heat it, it cokes very easily. And it cokes on the surfaces of the heat exchangers, and it blocks up everything. It's really a nightmare product to manage. And we had to get a very, very even heating on the tubes, not to get overheated spots, and also had to get up to about 400 degrees for the process to work properly. So that was a challenge on its own. You can't do it in a fired heater. The fired heater gives you hot spots, and you get coking there. You don't really get thermal oil that will get you up to 400 degrees easily. And sat around a little bit, and then I came up and said, but we can use thermals or salts, molten salt. They're using it in the thermal electrical plants, and why not using it in an industrial plant? So we looked around, and I got one of my engineers, Heinrich Erxleben, Heinrich did some of the research for us around different salts. And we found a salt that was suitable, a salt mix that was suitable to get up to those levels. So we built a plant where we were actually heating the salt in a fire heater and then using that molten salt as a heating medium in a once-through single pass shell tube heat exchanger. And it had to be such that it can drain easily. You don't want that salt to solidify in your tube, so it had to drain back to your sock. And that was a very, very successful thing. As far as we know, that was the first application of this type with molten salts. We still got some fouling in the heat exchangers, and we had to have frequent shutdowns. So we had another project on top of that one again. That was a self-cleaning system on the heat exchanger. So we developed a PIG, which was like a three-dimensional plate ball out of brass that we could run through these tubes, and created a system. Then I can give you some details around that later, but we didn't patent it, but I think it's a very unique system. Where we had an automatic introduction of this PIG into the feed line, running through the heat exchanger, and then have a system that catch it at back end and releases it, and after a period of time will reintroduce it back into the feed stream, all automatic. And what's very nice about this PIG, it was actually polishing the stainless steel tubes inside as well, which over time reduced the tendency to coke inside. So all of them, all very, very successful projects from that point of view. Again, feedstock became a problem, and eventually this process was unfortunately stopped. Yeah, that I think was a unique long-term. It ran over about 15 years, all the development, but it came out very interesting and very fulfilling.